Hello, CAUFP family. Hello, RBC family. Welcome back to another episode of Convos with CAUFP. My name is Rachel Ahrens, and I am happy to stand before you today, or sit before you, as the president of the Canadian Association of Urban Financial Professionals. And I am taking over from your typical host, Elaine Yan, and we are going to veer away from the typical financial literacy topics for discussion today. We are going to talk about something that is very important, and that is, I wish I could have a drum roll, mentorship. When I think about mentorship, I think having a mentor is so important. I think about looking up to somebody who is inspiring, somebody who has empowered me, somebody who has charted a path that I want to chart in my own career, somebody who has been through challenges, ups and downs, and can walk me through step by step a way of achieving that or going even greater, right? Mentorship, I believe we all can agree, has many positive effects. But I want to anchor today's discussion with a few important statistics to really ground ourselves in factual information about why mentorship is so important. All right, please stay with me. Fact number 1, employees who receive mentorship are 5 times more likely than their peers who do not receive mentorship to get promoted. Wow. That speaks a lot about the positive impact that mentorship has on the mentee. Now, I want us to take a look at this switch up, or this other fact, which alludes to the mentor. 87% of mentors and mentees feel empowered by their mentoring relationships and develop a greater sense of confidence as a result of that mentorship relationship. That speaks to the positive effect that mentorship has on both the mentor and the mentee. Now I want us to look at this last fact, which looks at the impact that mentorship has on organizations. Employee retention increases due to mentorship. So we have a 360-degree effect in terms of the impact, the positive impact that mentorship has on mentors, mentees, and an organization. Very, very important role that mentorship plays, and I'm so excited to be talking about that today. And this discussion is going to be talking about the role of a key member in those relationships. That is the mentor. We're going to be talking about some of the challenges that the mentor may face. We're also going to be talking about some of the nuances when it comes to mentoring a member of the Black community. So without further ado, I'd like us to pivot into the official programming for today. And I want to introduce our guests, our speakers of the night. Today I have with me Matthew Kayode and Deidra Murphy. I would like them to introduce themselves. So I'm going to pass it over to both of you to do the honors.
Thank you, Rachel. My name is Deidra Murphy, and I lead the PMO for the Value Office in the Office of the COO. I'm also the founding member and creator of the Beacon Mentorship Program. Beacon is an affinity group here at RBC that supports Black employees, and I'm also the 2024 Global Citizen Award recipient.
Lovely.
There you go.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
My name is Matthew Kayode. I have a coaching and a teaching background. I spent the last 18 years working in post-secondary institutions in Canada as well as the United States. I'm currently working for the Toronto Police Services, and I'm delighted to be here with everyone this afternoon.
Wonderful.
Welcome.
Thank you. All right, so Deidra, we're gonna start with you. So you've told us a bit about yourself, and you are leading the mentorship group on Beacon. Mm-hmm. So for those who don't know what Beacon is, it is an affinity group here at RBC. And I'm sure you've played the role of both a mentor as well as overseeing mentors, right, as the lead of the group. Can you provide us with any insights or examples of experiences that you may have had balancing work and life while being a mentor? I imagine it can be a bit of a load of work to do, but it is fulfilling in some ways. So that's sort of the positive impact or effect that you get from it. But how can you give us some examples of how you navigated those, that work-life balance or work mentor balance rather, and any tips that people can take in their own mentorship journey?
Sure. I think being a mentor or even a mentee, it means giving of yourself. And here at RBC, we're not Canada's #1 organization by chance. We all have full-time jobs where we're fully invested in the work that we do. And so it can be very easy to sink into that I've got too much on my plate to take the time out to mentor someone. I remember when I was leading a major governance uplift for our PMO, I was onboarding a number of new employees. I was managing organizational change and handling risk escalations. And someone that I knew, a junior project manager, approached me to mentor her as she navigated a very complex project that she had been given, as well as some tough interpersonal relationships that were happening at the time. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I do not have the time to do this with everything that's going on. But then I thought, I'm going to say yes. And the reason I said yes is I remembered all the times that there were other people who supported me in my career when I'm sure they were busy. One person comes to mind is an executive that I worked for earlier in my career. He was so supportive and he said yes on a number of occasions when I know it would have been easier for him to say no. But not only did he mentor me, he mentored me fully. I never felt that I was taking up too much of his time. I never felt that, oh my God, I have to meet with her now and I've got other things going on. When I met with him, I had his full undivided attention. So I said yes to that project manager, and we carved out time. We had coffee chats every couple of weeks, and they were informal, but they were intentional. And I really worked to ensure that she was getting from me the support that she needed emotionally, but also sort of my skill set. I'm a project manager by trade, and I've led large transformational initiatives across the organization. So I was able to give her exactly what she needed. And looking back, I realized that helped me too. Wow. It helped me grow. It reminded me of why I lead the way that I do lead. I lead with purpose. And I would say to anyone who's in that situation, when you give, you also get.
Right.
And you may not realize it in the moment, but as you go through it, you look back and you realize what you've gained from it. And you also realize how much you helped and supported someone else who needed it.
Right. So it goes back to that fulfillment piece. It really is sort of like a philanthropic duty in some sort of way. And how do you think, I know you referenced that mentor that you feel provided that time, and when he was present with you, he was fully there. How do you think he was able to do that? Or let's not assume for him, how do you think you were able to give your full self in the midst of that mentorship relationship with that young lady that you had mentored?
I want people to understand that time is precious, but when you're mentoring someone, you're taking maybe 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes every 2 weeks. So when you look at everything that's on your plate, it feels like it's too much. I don't have the time. But how much time do we spend during the day where you could have taken that time and bundled it up into that 30-minute period? That 30-minute comes and goes. That person got so much from you, but you didn't lose anything. And you certainly didn't feel like now you're behind. I've never felt now I'm behind because I gave 30 minutes or 45 minutes to a mentee.
Right. So it's also mentally repositioning your concept of time in some ways. Sometimes you're spending time on social media or reading an article, and that takes up 30 minutes, right? But it's time that you could have also given back to somebody through a form of mentorship.
100%.
I love that.
And what I'll say to you is that in those moments when you're mentoring, it does not feel like work. It feels like you're talking to a younger brother or a younger sister.
Right.
You're giving of yourself in a way that you're getting back. So it feels like just hanging out with someone you care about, which always feels good.
That's amazing. I love that. I remember having a conversation with somebody about this, and they said, it doesn't feel like work. It's exactly what you just said.
Exactly.
And it was that fulfillment piece that really stood out for them. Thank you. Matthew, I'm going to pivot over to you. We're going to get a bit spicy here with the topic.
Okay.
We're going to talk about unconscious bias.
Yes.
And how that can affect the way that a mentor provides guidance to their fellow mentee. I want to preface this discussion with a story I heard from a young Black, let's say mentee in this case. What he said to me was he had reached out to a Black senior level professional who he thought had the sort of experience and expertise, overall expertise, to provide him an understanding of what path to chart, what sort of skills to adopt. And he felt as though the person was being not very generous or giving with their advice, almost as though they were being very closed off or holding some key nuggets within them. And he said to me that is something that he's found to be very pervasive amongst the Black senior level professionals he has reached out to, and not necessarily the case with ally professionals. So, is there something that we need to unpack within our own community when it comes to those biases and how we're giving to persons? And also when it comes to allies, the role that they play as mentors, what are some of those unconscious biases that they may need to dismantle?
Thank you. It's a very large topic, so I'm going to try to kind of divide it up a little bit. I think from a bias standpoint, it's very important to understand it happens more on an individual basis. So all of us have to be aware of what our biases are. And that might be an experience or a belief that you might have had, and how that belief or experience kind of carries its way through the way you present yourself at work or in person. So that's the kind of bias piece right there. I think one of the first important aspects of bias is recognizing if you have one. That's very, very important. And then once you're aware if you have a bias, how that bias might manifest itself. Sometimes people might not be aware they have a bias until they're in a stressful situation. I recall a story where a young lady was on an airplane. She saw a female pilot. She was very excited until that plane had turbulence. And then she realized all of a sudden, hey, I hope that pilot is kind of qualified. And she admitted to herself that, you know what? I've never had that idea come to my mind on as many trips I've been to with male pilots, but now it kind of came out when I was on a plane with a female pilot. So she wasn't even aware of her bias until that situation occurred. So kind of reflecting upon your question, especially in the workforce and in corporate culture, there is a little bit of that kind of mentality that there can only be one. So individuals that have a lot of experiences as they move up the ranks, they don't see a lot of people like them from a cultural standpoint. So there might be that fear or that trepidation in regards to bringing others. I've been in social settings where, I'm the speck of pepper in a sea of salt. So having that opportunity to see someone that might have a similar background or similar experience, I've always come from that experience where I want to develop those relationships, develop those connections. But I do understand that some people might not have that experience as well. So it's a very nuanced conversation, but I think it's more of an opportunity. I'm a big believer, and it's because of my coaching background and my philosophy, reach one, teach one. To be successful, you're going to have to bring other people with you. There's no possible way that you're going to be successful, in my opinion, if you're doing things by yourself. Well, that can only take you so far. And I love some of the points that Deidra mentioned when you talk about mentoring. It doesn't take a lot. A conversation, an email, you're working on a task. Hey, come and just, shadow me and take a look at this. I'm going to be going to a meeting. How about you just come with me? Pay attention. I took these notes during this meeting. Why don't you take a look at it? What do you think? So for some people, they think it's a very large process, but sometimes it just be a conversation. It might just be a call. It might just be, hey, sit with me for about 10, 15 minutes and let's talk about what your experience are. Right? So it's just important, I think, to give back in general, but it's important to be aware of what your biases are.
And drawing it back to that mentor-mentee relationship, the mentor who may be of ally or Black background, let's say they're evaluating or giving advice to a mentee, to their fellow mentee, you don't want to have thoughts in your head that are saying, well, what if I mention this person's name in this room and they have their braids? You don't want that sort of thought to frame the way that you are engaging with that individual, because
sure.
that may prevent you from mentioning that person in rooms where there's room for growth.
Yes.
Or it may prevent you from providing insights to them that can be crucial to their growth, right? So it can be very detrimental in many ways. I think the last thing that I wanted to touch on is a quote unquote professional form of a professional conduct. So is there a professional way to wear here if you are a Black individual? How do we see that? Or should we just keep it clean, cool and collected? I don't know. These are things that we've heard from our community members. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
It's very interesting because once again, when I was younger in my career, I was very quick to conform. Actually, it's kind of funny. I went from a bald head to kind of a dreaded hairstyle. When I was younger, it was clean shaven, bald head, no facial hair. Because of my stature and my size, I've been told that I can be a little bit intimidating. So that's something that I'm aware of. So in regards to my experience, as you're newer to an organization, as you're newer to a company, you want to make sure that you improvise, adapt, but then also you're ready to overcome those challenges. As I've become more senior in my career, as I've continued to kind of educate myself, I've just been able to navigate situations a lot more fluidly. So I'm able to get to that outcome a lot more efficiently, a lot more effectively. I'm the type of person that when I see a young person, and especially an individual that has an African background or a melanated background, I want to give to them. I know the importance of mentorship and just having those opportunities to have those conversations. So I'm always quick to share those nuggets. Hey, you're new here. These are the things you got to do to move up. These are the things you need to do to be successful. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you're going to face these challenges and how you overcome them. So making sure people that are aware of the situation, and then they can kind of make their own decision on how they want to present themselves and how they want to carry themselves.
Deidra, any thoughts?
You talked about onlyism, and that's really about how we create space for others who look like us. One of the people that I really admire is Maya Angelou, and one of my favorite quotes from Maya Angelou is "Lift as you climb." It's something that I put forward in how I navigate my way at RBC. It's part of what I've done with the mentoring program is lift as you climb. But I also firmly believe, like this is one of my core beliefs, is that my life is sort of like a candle. And if I take my candle to light your candle, it doesn't do anything to my candle. It just makes the room brighter. If I then take my candle and light your candle, we're in a beautifully lit room now. Maybe it's glowing. All you do is bring more opportunity and more beauty and more fulfillment to the world when you support others. So use your candles. We all have candles. We all have talents. Use your candles to help others and lift as you climb. It makes a huge difference.
Love
and
that.
please forgive me, to your point, if your candle were to go out, now
Someone
that you've
else
lit my
comes in.
candle, now I can return the favor and light your
100%.
candle.
Love it.
Now
right?
there are
So
other candles
it makes
around me that
perfect
can
sense.
say, "Don't
Circular
worry,
effect.
Deidra, I've got you."
I got you. Yep, exactly.
So let's remember that. Don't hoard your candle.
Yes. Hashtag don't hoard your
Very
candle.
good point.
All right. I want to navigate back into the corporate world, into corporate culture.
Okay.
Now, corporate culture can affect the way that people behave, make decisions, and act in general. How do you believe that corporate culture can influence a mentee or a mentor in that relationship? And how would you advise that they conduct themselves appropriately to ensure that the mentee is positively impacted overall?
Great question. The one thing I would say that keep top of mind, and I've heard a number of great leaders say this, never underestimate the power of culture. There's a saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Culture influences and shapes everything we do, from who speaks in meetings, who gets promoted. Culture is something that it's in everything we do. And I think one of the things I've learned is that mentorship doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens in a system. there was, I'll give you an example. There was a mentee who felt that she was ready for a promotion, even though she hadn't quite met what I'll call the requirements of tenure. I think she'd been enrolled for about 18 months. But I agreed with her. I thought she was ready for that promotion. She was already delivering at the next level. The organization was benefiting from what she was providing, her capabilities, her approach. This was someone who I deem a very talented person. She was a high talented person. So I knew that she was ready, but it's difficult to sort of navigate. Do I speak up? Do I sort of put myself on the line to advocate for her? My personal value systems, fairness, courage, inclusivity, all of those things came to bear, and I chose to speak up despite my own fear. And it allowed her, she did get the promotion, it allowed her to accelerate her career, and it paved the way for others like her. I think it's important to remember that mentorship isn't just about guiding someone. It's about clearing the path for them when there are obstacles, moving from me being a mentor in that situation to being a sponsor. It's about sharing knowledge, and it's about helping people rise. We talked about the candles, and that when I light someone else's candle, they're then there for me. But if we're serious about developing that next generation of diverse leaders, I think it's important to do that, to put yourself out there. And the reason I'm talking about this in culture is I believe that RBC is the kind of organization that supports that. They support the development of others. They support people moving into something, even if they may not have fulfilled the exact requirements, if they're ready. And I have seen many leaders get moved into roles that were new to them because the organization believed in their ability to perform that role. And that's part of, I think, the rich culture that RBC plays.
I love that. All right, so I wanted to pivot into a few last questions here. So this is for both Deidra and Matthew. Please feel free to contribute at any time. We are seeing several generations show up in the workplace. I think we have Gen Z, we have millennials, so that's Gen Y. We also have Gen X, so Gen Z's parents. That's 3 generations. And in some cases, you have the silent generation, right? So that's probably Gen Z's grandparents. They are also in the workplace. I know my grandmother is in church doing her thing. She's still working. And then you also have the baby boomers who are, somewhat retired, or they may be working. So that's 5 generations in total. And then you also have Gen Alpha coming up as well. Yes. How do we navigate all those different generations in the workplace when it comes to mentorship? Are there any nuances that we need to look into when it comes to managing different generations in a mentee-mentor relationship?
I think for me, philosophically, and it's something that one of my mentors told me, and I'll never forget it, we live our lives forward and we understand it backwards. It's through the experiences and the situations that we go through that really kind of crystallizes our learning and our knowing. As a young person, we have a lot of confidence in what we know, but also we don't know what we don't know. And a lot of times I think that really speaks to that importance of mentorship, where you had someone that's literally been in your shoes. I was new to this company once, and these are the things we've done, and these are some of the things we didn't do, and this is what works for us, right? So being able to kind of clearly define, I think first and foremost, what are we working towards? What are our goals, right? So if that's circle number 1, clearly identifying our goals. Number 2, which you highlighted, the people. Now we have, okay, who are the people? We have 5 different generations that are all here in the workforce. Last but not least, that other third circle is our process. What process are we going to establish as a group of people to help us get to our goals? And seeing the interconnectedness of all those 3 circles, because they kind of overlap a little bit, okay, that kind of focuses and helps people have an understanding of the role they play and what they'll be doing. Similar to like driving in a vehicle. Everyone has, when you're going on a long road trip, everyone has a role. The driver drives. If you're sitting beside the driver, that means you're probably controlling the air conditioning, you got the radio, and your job is to support the driver.
And to
No, you
stay
also
up.
drive.
And so, yes,
You
yes.
also drive.
Yes, you also and stay up. That is key, right? You can't be falling asleep in the co-pilot seat
That's right.
while the driver's there, right? So as a person that's taken many long road trips, it's like, yeah, you have a responsibility. The people in the back, you can kind of relax a little bit, but at any given time, you may have to switch seats. Hey, you might be moving to the driver's seat, you might be to the co-pilot seat, you might be in the back relaxing a little bit. So when we think about that generationally as well, everyone has a different role, everyone has different experiences, but it's important to really focus on that overall goal that you're working towards and then have that continued conversations.
Right. And how important is the pass down of knowledge to a corporate organization, right? Because you do have those, members of the older generations who have a huge a resource load of
Yes.
knowledge to pass down. And sometimes when we just let them go, that's not ensuring that continuity is there,
Yes.
and that mentorship between generations is present as well. So how important is that to the organization, and how can we ensure that we foster that without making the older members of the older generation feel neglected, and also ensuring that the younger generation, they don't feel as though they don't know anything, but it's rather just, there's still some more to learn, and it's important to connect with persons who have gone through this, the ranks before the role before you have.
Yeah, great point. I think one of the key cornerstones to our human existence, right? We call ourselves human beings, but we should call ourselves human doings. We're doing this, we're doing that. There's a lot of things that occupy our time, and our time is very valuable. But it's important to take that step back and realize that at the cornerstone of our being as individuals, relationships matter, right? When you talk about that institutional knowledge and an individual that's been part of the institution for, say, 30 or 20 years, they've maybe forgotten more than you know. So it's really important that you work on those relationships and that you're having those conversations.
Deidra?
Well said. I really like what you said there, Matthew. We live life forward, but we understand it backward. I'm not sure I understand it. I'm kidding. I really enjoyed that. I think for me, mentoring across generations has been one of the most rewarding and honestly also humbling experiences of mentoring. Yes. One of the things that I've learned is we talked about biases and assumptions. You have got to cast your assumptions aside when in every situation, but specifically when mentoring across generations. You can't assume that people know things they may not.
Yes.
And I think sometimes some of those younger generations, but I think everyone has to learn to ask questions. When you don't know, just drop the assumptions, ask the questions, ask another clarifying question, get feedback. On both sides, that can unlock something so very, very powerful. And if we want to learn from each other, you absolutely generationally, when you're mentoring, or if you're a mentee and your mentor is not in the same generation as you, please open up and ask the questions. It's so, so important. Drop the biases, drop the assumptions, and share the information. Don't hoard insights. We talked about the knowledge that you have to share. That's what's going to take you to that next level.
Right. And mentorship does go both ways.
It does.
I remember a mentor of mine who said she genuinely learned from me. I said, what? Because she's in a completely different generation than I am. I thought I had more to learn from her, not vice versa. But she said she learned a lot from me in my diverse experiences, and diversity in terms of age, race, whatever it may be,
Yes.
brings a lot of value to a room.
Hoarding stunts innovation. It stunts insights. It stunts creativity. It's so important to share and be generous with both your time and your information.
Right.
And forgive me, as you look at successful organizations, you see that succession planning. You see that transfer of knowledge. When we talk about corporate culture, the successful businesses do those things organically. I think to something that my mentor taught me as well too, we have 2 ears, 2 eyes, 1 mouth. If you look and listen twice as much as you speak, you'll be in a much better position. Sometimes from a generational standpoint, you have that confidence, you have that bravado, like I got it figured out, so I'm going to tell you about it. Maybe you should spend a little bit more time looking and listening and then communicating at the appropriate time so that you can get your point across. And that might help also when it comes to that generational divide or that generational gap as well too, because it's important to kind of honor the experience that others have had. And I really think sometimes if you look and listen more than you speak, you'll pick up a lot more than always kind of leading with the conversation.
Listen more, speak less.
Yeah.
Love it. All right, so we're going to pivot into our last question of the day. Burnout. Burnout is a real thing. As a mentor, you're going to be balancing work. You're going to be balancing mentorship. I know a mentor who volunteers, runs marathons, goes swimming, doing everything you could potentially think of. How can mentors manage burnout? What sort of strategies can they employ to ensure that they are not burning out?
Boundaries are what served me very well. I became intentional about aligning mentorship to where I could have the most impact. I stopped sort of, mentoring a number, especially informal mentoring relationships. I scaled back on informal mentoring relationships and really leaned into where I could have the most impact. Part of that is Beacon Mentoring and the mentoring program there. We have executive mentoring circles where we can invite executives in. So if there are any executives listening who'd like to volunteer for a mentoring circle. But that allowed me to scale my impact without burning out. I think another thing that is important to think about is protecting your time to refill your own cup. So that self-care that it's need, whether it's me receiving my own coaching, my own mentoring from a peer, you need that renewal. So please take the time to do that. Mentorship should feel like an act of joy.
Yes.
And it is an act of joy. It's not duty. And when you center it in on legacy and being fulfilled rather than obligation, all of those positive, energizing effects of mentorship will come into play. And that mindset shift makes a huge difference. So focus where you can have the most impact. Remember to fill your own cup, and you will get joy from this. And joy is always energizing.
There you go. Yep. Fantastic points. I totally agree with everything you said. It's very hard to give to others if you don't have enough for yourself.
Right.
Absolutely.
Love that. Be proactive, have a plan in place.
For sure.
Well
Yes.
in advance. And it's good to work. Work is a blessing in itself, but you need to be working in a way that allows you to have joy while doing so, right?
For sure. Yes.
So, wow. Wonderful, wonderful contributions here. I've learned so much from both of you, just in terms of, when you have your candle lit, take it and light others. If somebody's candle goes out, ensure that you light theirs as well.
Yes.
Pass down knowledge, from generation to generation. Mentorship goes both ways, not just from the older generation to the younger one, but also vice versa. And when you are mentoring, it can be very fulfilling. I know you talked a lot about that, Deidra, and it's important to make sure that your cup is full to allow for that joy. Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to another episode of Convos with CAUFP. We hope to see you all again very, very soon. And please keep in contact with us through our social media channels, both on LinkedIn and on Instagram. And we will be posting further episodes very, very soon. All right, take care everyone. Bye.